So, I mean, moving on to a little bit about wrestling, of course. Uh, there was talks about Vince McMahon actually banning the leg slap. What are your thoughts about that now? As far as like when guys giving the kick to the face, well, the Shawn Michaels sweet chin music, so to speak, but they doing the leg slap instead of selling the actual kick correctly, but they're making it blatantly obvious that the wrestler is slapping his leg to make that sound effect. What are your thoughts about that?
No,
That Vince
mate,
McMahon banning?
that wasn't happening in my day. Okay, it did start later on than that, but you know, in the 80s and the 70s, very few people did that. You know, there was only maybe one person or two things. I didn't believe in that bullshit, you know, but everyone started doing it. In the 90s, mid 90s to late 90s, and that's when it all started. You know, well, it already started, but everyone started doing it, and I don't like it. You know what I mean? It's bullshit.
Right. I mean, I know back then the guys were more snug. And can I ask you something? How do you feel like as far as the styles back then and versus now? I know the guys, just like I just mentioned, like the guys back then were a little more snug as far as when it came down to the moves and stuff like that. What were your thoughts? How would you feel like a guy like Harley Race would feel like with guys today slapping their leg, giving the sound effect?
He'd give them a hell of a slap back. Harley was a man's man. Well, he wasn't a gym guy or anything. You could tell by his body. But that bastard was Hardy. You know, I can tell you a few stories of people at wrestling shows. Now I'm going back to in the 70s. At one show let me think of the town. It was a Wednesday night town in Oregon. I can't remember it anyhow, but Harley was in for a week. You know, the world champion traveled around all the territories, all the NWA affiliated territories, and he come up for a week with us in Portland, Oregon for Northwest Championship Wrestling. And this show, a guy yelled out something bullshit in the show, and then after the show, he asked someone, how would he start in professional wrestling? Who would he go to for training and that? And fucking Harley was there. He heard this. And he said, well, first, get in the ring and let me feel you out.
Right.
And that was a bad move.
Oh, boy.
Harley, he got in the ring. Harley hooked up with him, pulled him, and he gave him a headbutt right on the nose, which splattered his nose, bleeding, and he went down. His eyes were running, everything, and that was it.
Oh, wow. Unbelievable. I'm sure he never...
Harley let them know that this business was real. You know what I mean?
Right.
There was no moves. He came in locked up, but he amateur, professional lockup, but as he locked up, he pulled the guy in, and he had his head back, and he just came down with his forehead right on the guy's nose.
Oh, wow. I could tell. Well, the business was...
And that was all she wrote. That was all she wrote, mate.
Did he ever come back?
I don't know whether he was in any other matches. Anyhow, we were already to leave and that, you know. Harley had already showered and that, and we'd already showered, and we just hopped in the car and left the place. And I don't know whether, he may have come back to wrestling shows later, but he never put his nose out or anything like that again.
Any of the talent?
He was a mouth, like a tough guy. You know what I mean?
Right. And any of the guys, as far as the current talent today, that you feel like would actually be a good representative for back in your days, as far as worker-wise. And when I'm asking that question, I'm meaning somebody that works more snug, that you feel like could work actually real snug, versus.
Hey, to me, that's easy to pick. Well, you know,
Okay.
it may be not. It may be a lot of people have different ideas, but
Uh-huh.
Autumn's three.
Uh-huh.
He's the third tier down. The grandfather, the father, and him. You know,
Right.
he's seen his grandfather work, and that was real snug. You know, his grandfather was around Luther's day. You know, his dad started when Luther's was finishing. You know what I mean?
Right. 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 Okay. Okay.
I've been in the ring. I've been in the ring with Luthiers as a referee, and boy, those short elbows he gives to the side of the head. If you don't ride them,
Mm.
they knock you fucking senseless.
They rattle your freaking brains.
And that's how Lou works. That's Lou is a hell of a guy. You know they all say he was a stiff and all that sort of stuff. No, that was the era. That's how they worked. You learned to that, but it was they worked to make it it was believable. You know what I mean?
Right, right. Okay, so question, Luke. Do you feel like where do you feel like they went wrong? Why, in your opinion, why do you think they kind of loosen up as far as on certain moves and added more sound effect versus actually making direct contact and actually selling the move?
The age of all the movies with all the what's it called now? The action movies. You know, all the action movies and the sound effects and all that sort of stuff.
Right, right, right.
You know, with time, everything's changed. Remember action movies years ago to action movies today. It's another. The action movies years ago are dead. You'd call them deadpan compared to the action movies today. Right?
Yeah. Right. Correct.
Yeah.
Definitely.
You know what I mean? If you look at the sound effects and everything they've got in today, you know, it's smoke and mirror. And that's how the wrestling's become. You know what I mean?